The ACLJ is filed in federal court. This is part of our FOIA lawsuit to try and produce the documents from the government on the unmasking.
We are literally in court today fighting over that whole issue of when you get documents, they redact them or they don't provide you the documents at all. So we're going to get to the bottom of what was going on here, but we know a lot already. And what we know is unbelievably troubling. It's everyone from Samantha Powers all the way to Joe Biden. And Andy, in the course of thinking this through, you and I talked over the weekend, I cannot imagine the justification for all these unmaskings to the last day, the last hours of the Obama administration.
There is no justification, Jay, except snooping and wanting to see who is coming in and what are they saying and how can we discredit them. What possible reason can the Secretary of the Treasury, as an example, or the U.S. Ambassador to the Republic of San Marino, which is a country within Italy, want to know the identities of the American persons who were involved that you really had no legitimate business knowing?
Senator Graham has announced, Jay, he's going to do a series of investigations into all of these issues. And look, the filing that we're going to make today, Jay, is going to speak directly to one of the questions that I think Senator Graham should be asking, and I'm confident that he will. And that's the fact that why has the deep state, the bureaucracy, continued to give people like the ACLJ these Glomar responses, refusing to admit or even acknowledge that there are records? Jay, we have caught them now because that release of names yesterday included at least 7 State Department officials, so they can no longer give us that response. They have acknowledged that there are records that were responsive to our request. In fact, there are at least 7 State Department employees among those 39 that were released next week. So, Jay, as we continue to litigate, we've always said that's one of the pieces. The other piece has to be Congress. Senator Graham has said he's going to go for it. You're going to put those together. And, Jay, it's already breathtaking how sweeping it is going to be, but it just continues to grow every single day.
I don't think any of us could have imagined that the final name 8 days before their term was done would be Joe Biden, and that Joe Biden would be the nominee. Now we know it's the Joe Bidens, and it's not their chief of staff. It's actually Joe Biden that's listed. It's to make the request, and that is a differentiating factor because when it was the president, he had the chief of staff do it, Dennis McDonough. I mean, this is again we're talking the most powerful names in Washington D.C. that were behind these unmasking requests.
So what we did was we initiated a Freedom of Information Act lawsuit. It's what Andy was just talking about. And in that, we request various documents happen to be dealing with this issue of unmasking. And when we do that, that gives us access to documents, or at least it's supposed to. And one of the issues that happened here was they redacted a lot of it, which means, as Andy said, they covered it. So we're going back to court to get those released, to find out who was organized. We have found out a lot of information in these cases. So that is our lawsuit through the ACLJ, American Center for Law and Justice, against the State Department and the NSA to get an understanding of what took place.
Let me give you a very specific example of where the Senate can add a missing piece here. We've talked about it a lot about this January 5th Oval Office meeting where Susan Rice says that President Obama asked Sally Yates and Jim Comey to stay behind and have a deeper conversation about Mike Flynn. We learned last week when these names were unveiled that Dennis McDonough, President Obama's chief of staff, was one of the people that did unmasking, and he did it on that exact date, January 5th. We have an email inside our FOIA request that we uncovered in this litigation we're talking about, where Dennis McDonough is communicating with Ambassador Power and Susan Rice about how they are going to act during this transition period. This is where what Andy just said comes in. We have that information, but at the bottom of that email, there's a whole paragraph that is redacted, so we don't know what that conversation was. Senator Graham's investigation can uncover that redaction because they have a clearance level that we do not have. So we've said this so many times, Jay, but these are puzzle pieces that fit together. Some are on the outside, some are on the inside, and then ultimately, I think they will all end in John Durham's office. But you don't have a complete picture, Jay, unless the Senate or the House, although the House is not going to do it in this case, intervene, take the pieces that we've uncovered, and find the missing pieces to lay them on top of each other.
Really, it is a fight that's kind of backwards. They're supposed to be the ones to bear the burden of showing why it shouldn't be released, but it's turned out that we're the ones that are fighting it and trying to show the burden that it should be released. So it's kind of backwards, but we are persisting in doing this, and we intend to find out just exactly. For example, other than mere curiosity, what's Joe Biden wanting to unmask Mr. Flynn only a few days before leaving office as vice president?
I look at the whole thing as a package, and that is Samantha Powers. I look at Susan Rice. I look at, of course, Joe Biden, and asking why were they doing it when they were doing it? Why did they have an executive order changing the sharing of intelligence literally, 18 days before the administration was over? And why were they engaging in this unmasking literally hours before the new president, President Trump, was being sworn in?